Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to... Hello? Hey, tada. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vuyobonga Ndotana, and I am a member of the Young African Leadership Institute. So mine is very brief. It's just to welcome you all to this discussion that we're going to be having today. And I hope that we get a fruitful discussion out of this. So as you know, in 2024, we're going to be having our elections, national elections in South Africa. And a lot of people have said that this is going to be a watershed moment in South Africa because the elections that are going to be happening this year are a kind of a reflection of what happened in 1994. So the title of this series is The South African Youth Perspective Towards National Elections and a Critical Analysis. So we are expecting a robust debate, and we do expect robust discussions. Now, before I hand over to my professor and the speakers that are going to be speaking today, I would like to call upon Prof. Begim Gomezulu to give us an opening and a welcome of why we are here today. Thank you very much. Over to you, Prof.
Molweni. Vuyo is not a good guy. He told me to prepare a 5-hour speech, and then when I arrived at the gate, he told me that he has reduced my time to 5 minutes. That is how terrible this gentleman can be. Thank you very much for coming. He said his job is a simple one. Mine is simpler than his, because it's just to welcome you here, so that those of you who came here wearing jackets, then they can take them off. And then, of course, those who came here carrying some brown envelopes, they can drop them off. I'll be ready to collect them. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm mindful of the fact that there are people who are joining us online. So we are conscious of the time, so we'll try to stick to the time. Facilitator, Mr. Vuyo Ndotana, Nelson Mandela community, especially Conrad, the diligent staff at this university that is doing a sterling job with these events. Ms. Nancy Msebi, my colleague here, who is coming from Conrad Adenauer Stiftung, normally referred to as CAS, who has made this event possible. Thank you very much, Sisi, for coming here and for gracing this occasion with your presence. Our young leaders who are energetic and will be addressing us today. By the way, I'm still young, but youth and dala. And then you, ladies and gentlemen, those who are joining us physically, and then, of course, those who are joining us online. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of Nelson Mandela University and on behalf of Conrad to this very important discussion, which is focusing on South Africa's youth perspective on national election. This is a timely topic as we head towards the 2024 general election. Voter apathy, despondency, and outright resistance to participate in elections has become a huge concern due to dereliction of duty by both politicians and the electorate. The reality is that if you don't vote or if you don't participate in voting, you are outsourcing agency. In other words, you are giving your power to other people. Because they are going to vote, but they're not going to vote for the person who they voted for, they are going to vote for someone else. So in other words, if you don't vote, then you are giving agency to others who are going to elevate the person who would not have given a nod if you had gone there to cross your X. There are a number of people then who are going to assist us navigate this topic. And what impresses me is that all of them are young. And the youth age in South Africa is between 14 and 35. So those of us who are 34 are almost there. Okay, then as young people, then you are the future of this country. Nelson Mandela echoed these sentiments when addressing an audience at Damelin College in Johannesburg when he said the following, I quote, "Our youth are our future," end quote. In appreciation of the importance of the youth, Mandela also made the following statement in 2002. And then he said that the youth, I quote, "It is up to the youth to decisively and finally break our society out of the constricting and divisive definitions of our past," end quote. Most of you will understand that Mandela liked children in general, but then, of course, he liked youth in particular. It was for this reason, because he believed that the future depends on them. Another visionary whom we are celebrating next month, that is Stephen Bantu Biko, made a number of contributions in terms of channeling our thoughts. He once made the following statement, I quote, "It is better to die for an idea that will live than to live for an idea that will die," end quote. In other words, let us not be happy that we are alive. Let us be happy that our ideas are going to outlive us. If you live and you don't do what you're supposed to do, when you die, we'll forget about you. But if you did something while you were alive, we'll not remember you, but we'll remember what you said and what you did. That's what Biko told us. Biko also observed that, and I quote, "The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." In other words, meaning that we give agency to those who oppress us. You as the youth, I don't expect you to do that. Because you are young and vibrant, you are full of ideas, so don't allow politicians to determine your future. They've been given a chance and they failed, so then you must grab that opportunity. Biko was instrumental in the formation of the South African student movement called SASM, and this particular structure was instrumental in the 1976 student uprising. This is one of the signature events which demonstrate the capability of the youth to channel a society in the right direction. Today, we have new oppressors, our former liberation fighters, and of course, career politicians. People are not supposed to be politicians, but who pose as politicians because they want to amass wealth. Those are career politicians. If Mandela, Biko, and others destroyed apartheid as their oppressors and vowed to face it head on, why would the youth of today allow politicians to take power away from them? That's the question we need to address. And then lastly, Frantz Fanon made the following statement. Each generation must, out of a relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it, end quote. So in other words, you are the youngsters in this country. We have to determine your future, and in order to achieve that goal, you have to identify what your mission is, and then work towards achieving it, and not to betray it. What is the mission of the youth today? That is one of the questions I think our speakers will assist us here with. What are their views on elections? They will be helping us with that question as well. Which direction must the nation take under the current context, where political parochialism and politics of the belly or politics of the stomach have taken center stage in derailing our democracy? And they are going to assist us in addressing that question as well. The youth seated here will help us find the way forward. With those few words, I wish you very fruitful deliberations and of course a great dialogue. Thank you, ngiyabonga, enkosi, bayadanki, asante sana.
Thank you very much, Prof. And I think that was a very important question that was posed. Identify your mission as a generation and fulfill it. But then the question remains, how do we identify that particular mission? And I'm very happy that we have these robust debaters that are going to be joining us today to help us deliberate on these issues. So without wasting any time, I'm going to call upon these wonderful speakers to come up and take their seats, please. We can give them a round of applause as they come along. All right, so without wasting any time, I'd just like to give a format of how we're going to be operating this discussion. So we have 3 speakers that are going to be taking the podium, and they have been allocated a minimum of 10 minutes, right? Sorry, a maximum of 10 minutes. A maximum of 10 minutes to deliberate and give us their presentation. And then thereafter, we will proceed to the Q&A session. I will try by all means to keep it short on my end. The discussion has to come from the floor, right? Right. It's probably going to be about 45 minutes, give or take, but it will also depend on the appetite on the floor, and then we'll proceed in that direction. So without wasting any time, I would like to introduce the first speaker, which is Unsiga. Unsiga Maweni is a disruptor of the status quo. Having acquired her physical disability by falling victim to a horrible motor vehicle accident as a child, Siga advocates for people with visible and invisible disabilities. As a political and international studies and African languages graduate from Rhodes University, Siga has since entered the space of civil society and community development initiatives. The civil society and community development initiatives that Siga is involved in are youth-focused and look to emancipate young people from all walks of life through political education, skills development workshops, and mentorship programs. Siga is a graduate of the 40 Autumn School on Social Democracy, here, and Political Economy 2019 cohort called the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung. She is also a graduate of the Activate Change Drivers cohort 2020. In addition, Siga has represented the Republic of South Africa in youth speaking engagement on several occasions and in the Model African Union Summit. Siga also completed a research internship with Mapum Ngogwe Institute for Strategic Reflection in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, here I introduce Unsiga Maweni. Thank you very much.
Molweni, ninjani? Thank you so much for the warm introduction to our facilitators, and also thank you to the Center for Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy, as well as the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung for the invitation. So let's get right into it. Young people get a bad reputation when it comes to their electoral participation. So I work on the ground, right? And basically questions that I get is often, why should I vote? What will change if I participate in the voting process? I don't even know what I'm voting for. And what is the point of voting anyways? Things will stay the same. The electoral participation of young people continues to be a subject of divided political discussion. What we often do not talk about is the attractive nature of party politics and how it is not appealing to us young people, right? So as much as we are in this room, I'm actually very glad that I see young high school pupils wearing their school uniforms being part of this talk. Because often what happens is that those who only have access to the information fill these rooms, we have these discussions, we have these debates, and they stay inside. The information does not go down to the people who need it the most. So, prior to the 2019 national elections, thousands of young people took to Twitter to share their reasons why they chose not to participate in the voting process under the hashtag, I want to vote, but. So you know South Africa usually uses comedy to camouflage the pain that they're feeling, right? We use memes, we use music and all of these nice things. But there's one particular user of the Twitter who said, hashtag I want to vote, but. They keep saying vote for change, but they can't even change their own ministers and elect young people. Skathela makehla no gogo. Loosely translated to non-Zulu speakers, we are tired of old men and old women. So in 2019, 9 million South Africans that were eligible to vote did not register to vote. 46% of this group fell into the 20 to 29 age category. This is a research finding by Lindsay Schutel. And now when we fast track to the 22nd of August, 2023, today, we have about 26 million, 1,954 and counting registered voters. Out of that number, about 10,570,416 of those registered votes belong to the youth. 228,727 fall into the 18 to 19 age category. 3,734,773 fall into the 20 to 29 age category. Now the next category is going to be a bit shaky because IEC did not break up the 30s. Just the highlights. To the 30 to 39 age category, about 6,606,916 of those people have registered to vote, right? So what we don't realize as young people is that our decision to participate in the voting process influences the electoral politics of the country. And the reason why we do not really get the gist of understanding the power of our votes is because we lack political literacy and political education among us young people, old people, so on and so forth. The information of political literacy is not amplified by the IEC, unfortunately. I wish they were here so I could drag them personally. But what happens is that when you're 16, you're eligible to get your ID. You can also get your learner's license, but you can't vote until you're 18. So between 16 and 18 years old, what is supposed to happen in high schools is that you're supposed to be taught about the importance of voting, why you should vote, and also how voting can give you the agency, or rather the power, to enact the change that you want to see. But instead, what happens is that there's a very gray period between 16 and 18. And if you are lucky, you get access into participating into these initiatives. But many high school pupils fall behind, unfortunately, and you become part of the group that will vote just because you have to vote, or you choose not to vote because you see there's no change within your society. So there's always this chat that Uprof also mentioned about us being politically apathetic. And I say us because I'm also a youth. There's distrust in the political and electoral processes. There's gatekeeping of information. So people who can benefit from it the most are not the ones who are in the room. There's lack of accountability from political leaders. Young people are yet to realize the power of influence that their vote has in electoral processes. There's a growing negative perception regarding the lack of service delivery. We're speaking about access to quality water, access to electricity, access to education, and the list goes on and on. There's also failure to deliver essential services, such as youth-based healthcare initiatives. Young people are also not effectively represented in these spaces. So you may see a young person thinking that they might be there to champion the needs of the youth, but instead they get sucked into the space that they're in and end up representing the So basically what happens, I'm gathering my thoughts, what happens is that young people who may seem to represent you in these spaces end up being consumed by the organizations that they're in and end up championing the needs of the organization instead of the needs of the youth, right? So as we're seated here, we're probably having many conversations and we're asking ourselves, we're in this dialogue, where to from here? First things first, political literacy. It's time that we collaborate with civic society initiatives as well as political organizations in order to champion a political educative initiative that is in a language that is accessible and that is also practical. So we can walk around using these big jargon words, but if we don't know what they mean and how they can be meaningful to us, then this is not to our benefit. We also need to reduce barriers to registration. What you often see is that there's this link saying, no, hope you register to vote for 2024. But the reality of the fact is that there are people who are staying in remote areas where they cannot actually register properly due to their geographical location not being captured on the system. So perhaps then we could bring up the whole idea of having a same-day registration, same day as you vote. But then again, it goes back to us going back to the political literacy and understanding how the government systems work, how the electoral system works, and how this can be beneficial to us. Because South Africa is desperate for political accountability and a leadership that is inclusive. Thank you. 10 minutes left.
No, thank you very much, Nsika. That was quite a mouthful, and I hope that the floor was able to take away some key points from your presentation. Now, without wasting any further time, I would like to call upon Ms. Kanya. Sorry, Ms. Nsika. Sorry, Kanya Burns. Sorry, my sincere apologies. And she will be giving us another key discussion to be taken away from us. Over to you, leadership. Ngos.
Maleni, I'm very excited to be in the Eastern Cape. As somebody who works in Johannesburg, I get to be in my home province not so often. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is the way that I think everybody in this room can come together and we can win elections next year. And a lot of what I'm going to share today is informed by the work that I've been doing for the past 11 months with the Rivonia Circle. At the Rivonia Circle, we go around communities all around the country and we ask them about the state of democracy, because nobody's a better expert of democracy than the people who live in it. So the only way that we as the youth are going to win elections next year is if we just do these 3 things that I'm going to tell you about. So the first thing that we need to do as the youth of South Africa, we need to show up to the elections. In the last election, 40 million South Africans were eligible to vote. Only 26 million registered to vote. And even of that 26 million, only 12.5 people actually went to go vote. South Africa has a population of 60 million people. So 12 million people chose the government for 60 million people. The youth, which is us, and maybe other people who want to be in the category, we make up 65% of the total population of South Africa. And if we talk about the state of the youth, I think Kunsika has highlighted that very well, and I'm not going to go through the statistics. We ought to reach a point. When we read the youth statistics in this country, we ought to say, next year in the 2024 elections, I am going to show up because I am tired. So that's point number one. We ought to reach a point as young people in this country. Secondly, 2024 is our opportunity to choose who governs the country, how they govern the country, how many seats are in parliament, and who gets to have those seats. And so, if you think about voting, you must think about it as a group project. We used to have group projects in high school, we used to have group projects in varsity sometimes. And you and your group are not gonna pitch on the day of submission and go, here is our group project. You guys are gonna meet, you're gonna talk about it, you're gonna discuss it, and then you are going to go.
Who will be embedded in the principles of non-racialism and who ushered in a democratic dispensation wherein even the ANC was then able to see that we are able to work without wanting to divide each other on racial lines. I make these events as pointers to give a sense of the importance of why it is that we must have a generational mission and why it is important for us to fulfill it. Because a revolution is not an event that will occur overnight. You don't time it and say by 6 o'clock the revolution will be done. It is an ongoing phase by phase process that requires that we register certain victories towards a total victory and liberation of our people. So in 1994 we would have achieved political freedom. But in 1994, we would not necessarily have achieved what we call social and economic freedom in our country. So in answering the question, Prof, I implore that young people now should be focused on economic freedom and social change now and not later. Young people are said to be becoming more and more despondent to politics. And of course, this would be a concern because it's not only scholars of politics that should express political opinions, but it is basic to democratic principle that everyone should. A more comprehensive and scientific analysis will show you that we have got a disgruntled populace, a despondent youth, a resentful society in general. When these factors are combined, the current developments will be explained without the need for any argument. When it comes to the concerns about young people's livelihood in our nation, difficulties in South Africa have been brewing for a very long time. The unemployment rate in the nation is alarmingly high, especially if you use the expanded definition that takes discouraged job seekers into account. Black unemployment is higher than the national average and other population groups, with Black African women the most affected. Elections should therefore act as a reminder not only for the majority of us that we are not invisible, but should act as a reminder of our material circumstances. Our response to this should be involving more than just the casting of a ballot, but it involves a conscious and unconscious struggle on our part to change the status quo. While we do not want to see the nation in flames, we all want change, and if no one brings it, we as young people must impose it. Although we occasionally allow our youth to be taken advantage of, and the vitality we have on our side and age should be used as an essential tool in expressing the youth's discontent with our current situation. Confronting the establishment and the powers that be would be the rightful thing to do. The state over the years has chosen to use the cohesive arm, particularly the South African police services and the courts, to instill fear and threats to its citizenry instead of engaging them at a moral level. It fails to recognize the origins of the problems that are facing young people, the underlying problems themselves, and the psychological effect that we as a nation with a troubled past would have of rubber bullets, stun grenades, tear gas, lawsuits, and various other apparatus that were used in the past to restrict young people from expressing their views and discontent. Citizens should therefore not allow those who hijack the public debate to impose on them an argument which claims to empower voters, but that does exactly the opposite. As a way forward, we must therefore ensure unity as the youth of South Africa and the globe in ensuring that the current government delivers on the following broad, non-exhaustive demands. We must call for the promotion of the rule of law and the independence of the judiciary. We must call for the advancement of public accountability, monitoring and evaluation of public officials and enterprises. We must call for an advancement of prosperity, people's ownership, and the ultimate triumph of young people. We have seen the devastating effects of coalition governments and the instability that they come with as backdoor political parties with minute electoral percentages bully their way into governance without the mandate of the people. This one I think I will express more of when we are in the discussions, and the case in point will be the Nelson Mandela municipality, which has had, I think, more than 7 different mayors within one term of office. So we are saying that there is a need to take a strong stance on our current unstable foreign policy posture, so that we can better our relations and build a solid convergence with fast-growing industrialized countries such as China, Russia, and Brazil. We are saying that the private sector must be coerced into contributing to the intended result of at least 20% of gross fixed capital formation, because it is sitting on sizable surpluses that it is returning to its stakeholders with investing less in plants and equipment. So we're talking about the infrastructural development. We're saying that we must call for the accelerated investment in network industry infrastructure, which is crucial for macroeconomic strategy and stimulus. We're saying, therefore, that the current government should work on the refurbishment or rollout of electricity, roads, railways, telecommunication, broadband, and digital terrestrial television spectrum infrastructure. There must be a provision of bulk municipal and industrial infrastructure in rural districts, together with the rejuvenation of collapsed industries, such as those of the Nelson Mandela and Buffalo City districts in the Eastern Cape. We must gear our macroeconomic policy framework towards the attainment of a wider distribution of social and productive investment, structural reorganization of value-added industries, robust knowledge and technology flows, and the development of skilled, healthy, and capable citizens, as well as an effective and capable state across different levels. We're saying that the microeconomic policy must address income and age inequalities by protecting poor households through social subsidies, basic income grants, and providing incentives for labor-intensive industries, such as the clothing, textile, furniture, and construction industries. We're saying that the high rates of youth unemployment and the general unemployment are at a crisis level and require strong public-private partnerships that will drive the investment, taxes, skills, and other impetuses into the sector, with a proven record of absorbing training and upskilling with limited or no skills. Lastly, as I sit down, we are saying that there must be infrastructural development and education that is meaningful. In saying that, we are saying the curriculum content that is being produced in institutions of higher learning and basic education must respond to our bread and butter issues that we are faced with on a daily basis, and must not be a superstructure of a curriculum that does not have or take into consideration our everyday crises. So in so doing, comrades, as young people, we must tell the masses of our people the truth. We must expose lies whenever they are told. We must mask no difficulties. We must tell no lies. We must claim no easy victories, as Amilcar Cabral says. And we must ensure, comrades, that we are clear that nothing must be done for young people without young people. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Siviwe, for that wonderful deliberation. I'm sure that there's a lot of appetite for discussion on the floor, and I don't want to deprive anyone of that opportunity. But just before I pass on the opportunity to the floor, I just have one question that I would like. Obviously, I'm taking advantage now. You know, because from the panelists, we heard a lot about youth unity and youth empowerment. Now, I understand that, you know, we come from different spheres, we come from different political backgrounds, and we come from different ideological backgrounds as well. Now, I just want to understand, this is not posed to anyone. Anyone can take the question before we move on to the floor. But I would just like to know, how do we move forward as a youth and find our objectives first and foremost, and get to that objective goal, whereas we don't share the similar ideological views? Anyone can go first. Spiwe?
Thank you, Leadership. I think, like I said, historically, we have been able as young people to posture ourselves in a way that transcends ideological training, that transcends party political posture of one. You would know, and many others in the university, we had what we call Fees Must Fall in 2015. A Fees Must Fall uprising, or the Fees Must Fall protests, were protests that were not embedded on any singular party political ideology. So I can tell you from experience, and without even going to a textbook, that when young people are committed to a cause, when young people have got an understanding that regardless of what party we belong to, regardless of our ideological understanding of society, that if there is an immediate issue that we are faced with and that we can address if we are united, we are able to put aside those ideological differences and transcend the political or the party political arrangement that is imposed, by the way, on young people. Because young people have never decided on their own that we do not want to work with people of another party, or we do not want to be involved in multi-sectoral programs. I mean, if you're going to go to into sports, it does not matter if I'm a Marxist or a liberal. A sporting development will be a development of the sports. But we are so embedded into what we are trained to do or say ideologically that sometimes we are unable to unite as ourselves as young people and say that this is something that we are being faced with. Part of the challenges that we are alluding here to today are challenges that I myself appreciate that some of them are perpetuated by the governing party, which I'm a member of. And so therefore, it does not mean that we must then crawl up into a corner and keep quiet about those injustices, but that as young people must be able to unite in one voice and force whoever is at the helm of our party political structures to take the posture that we want to see as young people. So I think that it's something that can be done.
No, I absolutely agree. And if you don't mind me throwing a spanner in the works, I mean, not too long ago we had a protest here on campus, and the issues on campus were not ideological. It was an issue about NSFAS. But then you found that one political organization was on the ground, and then the others were not necessarily found to be there because I don't know. So I don't know, Kanya, do you necessarily agree with what this viewer is saying?
Oh, is it on? Okay. So I think when it comes to the politics of this country, we need to have a very honest conversation. And the conversation, we need to be the generation that's going to be honest. And we need to be very honest about the kind of political system that we have in this country, first and foremost. Because the political system we have in this country takes power away from the people and it concentrates power in political parties. And that's the first mistake. For as long as we have power that is concentrated in political parties, we as the people are not going to have real power. So for example, Politics for me is not political parties. Quite frankly, I don't care about political parties. I don't care about the union buildings. I don't care about people in shiny suits and pointy shoes. I care about my life. Politics is personal. My life is political. My life as a young black woman in this country is political. And that to me is politics. So whether you come from wherever you come from, we need to challenge the kind of political systems that we have that does not give power to the people. So as I spoke earlier, I said I work for an organization that is called the Rivonia Circle. And what we do as the Rivonia Circle, we do what is called democracy building. And what we do in the democracy building, we just go into communities and we put the word democracy on the wall and we ask, what do you think of this word? Or what is your experience of this word? And at the end of that, I wanted to earlier on speak about an example that we had when we went to a Democracy Builder workshop in Venda. In that workshop, we normally ask people to create a South Africa 2.0. And the idea behind South Africa 2.0 is that South Africa is due for an upgrade. So in 1994, we got a better version of South Africa. I think we can all agree. We went from apartheid to democracy. But since 1994, we've been stuck in that same old system. I was in a democracy builder in Graaff-Reinet, where this government that we have today makes me angry because it makes people feel as though governance and South Africa was so much better under apartheid. Black people in 2023 are saying that because of the kind of government that we have. So I said, no, apartheid is a crime. It was a crime against humanity, and I came with everything that I knew. And you know what? The people of that community were right. What's happening in today's democracy is a crime, and that's what we should call it. And so until we were able to have honest conversations about the kind of political systems we have in this country, we're not going to get anywhere.
Thank you very much, Kanya. Zika?
Is it on? Okay. You're on it. So for me, the future is intersectional. And the reason I say this is because I live with an intersectional identity. So the way in which I personally navigate particular spaces, I need to be wary of my race, my physical ability, and also my body type, right? So as a youth and working with different youth initiatives, what you often realize, like Uvuyo said, is that everyone has different ideas, different backgrounds, different opinions, and different goals, right? So it's important for us to not forego our opinions completely, but come to a common understanding that the kind of South Africa that we want to live in is one that we are going to have to work for. And in working towards that common South Africa, we are going to disagree, right? We are going to come to a couple of disagreements. We might not see we might not see one particular thing from the same point of view, but that's why we live in the world that we live in. There are no two people who are identically the same and who think the same, even if they are identical twins, right? So it's important as young people to come together and actually also move towards the kind of politics that we want to participate in. Because we all know that when something happens on social media, for example, the protest at NMU, for example, you'll see a hashtag, it will trend, every young person has a particular opinion, and unfortunately, the numbers on the ground in comparison to the number of tweets or the number of Facebook shares, and so on and so forth, you know, do not correspond with one another. So I think it's high time as a youth we come together and understand the kind of politics we want to participate in, but also what protest means to us, because we do understand that perhaps even the language of protest has changed from us fighting for what we believe in on the ground to perhaps something new, and that is what we need to discover and come to a common understanding of.
All right, thank you very much, Nsika. Now, I think I'm not going to waste any further time. I am going to open up the floor so that we can ask questions to the panel. So I'm hoping that there's an appetite for discussion. So I am going to note in the first round 5 hands. Is there anyone who would like to pose a question? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 1. Yes? Oh, sorry. As you pose a question, can I please just ask that you indicate who you're posing the question to? Thank you.
Okay. Before my question, I would like to state this statement. I don't think South Africa is aware of the kind of youth they've created so far. Like, from 1994, I created Uguti. Everything was fine. They fought for freedom. We got freedom and everything. But they are not aware of the things that they promised that the youth of today will be getting. You know, the first thing that I can say was done wrong is telling people that we're going to provide such things like houses. You're going to provide them, you're going to give them houses. You're not going to teach them how to build their own houses. Hence, if you ask people, would you vote if voting was online? They'll be like, yeah, hell yeah. I will vote if voting was even on TikTok. Like, the kind of youth that has been created is different from the youth of 1994. So if you want to accommodate young people, accommodate them in a way that they understand and they do things. So if you want to get more young people involved, I think it's better to also understand that you've created these young people who do not go out and get things for themselves. You've promised these young people that if you want a job, I'm going to give you jobs. You've never told them to just fix your CV and go look for jobs. That's the mindset. That's the mindset that South Africa has created, and it is wrong. My question to the floor. I think I'm going to face the same question that which I just said, Uguti. Don't you think young people will be more active if the voting don stations, the voting rules and guidelines and everything were to accommodate them?
Thank you, my leader. Number 2. Say it. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, so my question is for Ms. Kanya, right? So Ms. Kanya, as you said to Kutibana, as a youth, we are expected to be the ones who try to create a change in this society, right? But how can we try to create change whereby our authorities don't show any interest in meeting us halfway on the ideas or our visions that we have in this country?
Number 3, it's right over here.
Hi everyone. I have a lot of thoughts, comments, and questions, but I'll be brief. I am one of the students who are part of ISMAS 4. And I heard everything you said about our mentality towards voting, and I am one of the people who are very set on not voting. And this is the reason why. When our youth came together, post-1994, we had a mission, the plight of decolonization, right? And free education. However, the democratic government, the people before 1994 who were met with stun grenades, with rubber bullets and interdicts, did the same thing to us. Now, my question is, why are you surprised that we are alienated from this whole democratic process? Not just that, the IEC, the whole system of voting itself, it's not, we can't trust it. I was a party agent at one of the UWC voting stations, and I saw the difference between the number of votes that I counted the night before and the votes who were broadcasted on TV were whole different. I saw there that the numbers cannot be trusted. I can't trust what happens in the voting station and what will be told to me on TV the next day. So, how, honestly, I don't know how to put this question. I don't blame my peers for not trusting the process, for not voting, because the whole process is flawed. Us choosing our president is even flawed. We are not part of it. Congress happens there, far away from us. We don't have a say in that. People in party politics have a say in it. Civil society don't have a say in that. Then how are you expecting us to be, the whole political system in South Africa is messed up. I agree. What are we supposed to do as the youth then? To change, one, the political system itself, and to have faith in the whole process, because I don't see these talks giving me any faith, honestly. I don't, and I don't see political education being the issue. We are very politically educated in South Africa as the youth. That's all, thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 4.
Thank you. Igama ngilonwabo, surname is Khams. I just have a few comments on what was presented, probably a question at the end. I think there's an incorrect notion that we have. There's the notion that the agency of people going to actually vote is a responsibility of the government to impose it upon the people to go and vote. And there is a failure, or rather a lack of appreciation of the freedom you are given through your vote. I hear the other views of no trust in the system. But if ever you are feeling that South Africa, through its government, is not providing what is necessary through its economy, general social life, even its political systems, the systems in place, in my belief, are adequate enough for you to go and change what you see is wrong and inadequate. But the agency is not practiced by the people who have a problem with the system. And there's this incorrect notion that our government must do this and that for us to believe. But we have it backwards. The way it actually should be is that through its political systems, of which, as I say, I believe they work, you are given a freedom to join a political organization that you believe best suits your own views. And through joining that political organization, that organization then goes and derives a mandate from people, who should have an outlook on what government should be like. And through that system, you then vote for that person to be in parliament. The ultimate freedom and the ultimate power lies with you. However, we have this, and I believe it's because of social welfare. We have given too much. It's what every young person, a soft life. Everyone wants to live a soft life in this country, particularly young people, not understanding that your agency is your future, and what you decide to do with it provides the future that you want. Now, if you sit back and say, I'm Nandizu, your voter, and you allow 12,000 people who perhaps believe in the ANC to go and vote, decide your future, it therefore means that your future lies with those 12,000 people. If the rest of the 5 million people don't go and vote, why is there a complaint? I do not believe that you should complain if you do not participate. Same as a student protest. You cannot complain that the outcomes are not favorable if we're now in Netflix. How do we then go and complain that his decisions are not favorable? Because
I'm going to ask you to land, you have 30
okay.
seconds left.
Okay, as I learn. So I've been funa nje ukubuza because they're manageable. I would like you to further explain how exactly, yes. I would like you to further explain how exactly do you believe these political systems are actually failing people if people themselves are not exercising their own agencies themselves to then go and enact these political systems, because I mean, you brought the numbers on the people who participated. If you don't participate, how do you complain?
Thanks, my leader. Number 5.
Oh, all right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mfansen Kogola. I'm a third-year student in development studies. I'm very concerned about the development. So I'm not good with speaking and debating. I'm not very clear with politics. But my concern, my biggest concern, I think everyone touched it. It was about the system itself. But I'm very concerned that we do not see IEC. I thought if it was very going to be productive or efficient for me, I'm not talking for everyone, that maybe IEC was going to be here to account maybe, or to bring hope to us as youth, because this thing of numbers and stuff and results, because maybe sometimes we go and vote, even at local municipalities, we go and vote and having hope that this one will win, but the system itself will portray everything, and you find that you lose. My last question is, actually I didn't have a question, it was just the comments. Yeah. My question, as I will sit down, is from our last speaker who talked about monitoring and evaluation of public officials. I have a question, how can we do that as youth? Because I feel like, for myself, I feel like it's not very easy. It's not an easy thing to do. How can I do that? Thank you.
So those are the questions that have been posed from the floor. I don't know whether I should give the panelists some 30 seconds just to touch up on who's going to go first. Or should I take an executive decision? Siga, do you want to go first?
Inkosi Vuyo. So I'm going to answer the first question, where Usisi asked if we do not think that young people would benefit from participating in the electoral processes if they were made accessible through social media platforms such as your TikTok and Twitter, and I don't know if Facebook is still appealing to the youth yet. Still rather. So I'm just gonna take a go at this. There are content creators on TikTok who unpack, the importance of electoral processes, who unpack on the politics of South Africa, who bring forward the conversations on the importance of voting and so on and so forth. So perhaps if we were able to convert it into, for example, a dance challenge or Sabu film challenge, that is something that can be up for debate. It's not impossible. It's still something that can be done because we do have about less than 270 days, approximately, until our next elections. So it is something that is up for debate, and often what happens prior to the elections is that most political organizations go into, into the trends to find out what is fashionable to the youth of today and kind of, build into that. So obviously you will find your favorite content creators, influencers, celebrities who will, be affiliated with particular organizations to bring forward a message to vote or vote for a particular constituency. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Nzika. Over you, Tukai.
Okay, so I'm gonna hop onto the question that Nzika was answering and then answer the two questions that were directed to me. So in terms of making things accessible to the youth, I think part of the reason is the kind of language when we use when we talk about politics. I'm not gonna go to rural Eastern Cape and go talk about Marxist and Leninist and Fanon, because those people are not gonna know what I'm talking about. And quite frankly, that kind of society is not the kind of society that they live in. So I think when we talk about politics and we talk about making it accessible to young people, we must be careful about the language that we use around around the youth. So that's a simple way, because I've worked with young people in many youth clubs in Johannesburg that have never done a single day of politics, but they have the practical understanding of what politics is and what politics is supposed to be. I'm going to answer the second question, which was, I think, about how we can create serious change when politicians don't take us seriously. So you are right, politicians don't take us seriously. I'm part of the National Youth Coalition, and we wanted to do a National Youth Parade on June 16. We were asking for sponsors, we asked the government to support us, and they didn't. We wrote a memorandum last year that the president didn't reply to. So we submitted the exact same memorandum. The president didn't come collect it. He sent representatives, which were 2 hours late. So they don't take us seriously. And so we must also not vote for them. I know that I'm not going to vote for them because they don't take me seriously, and therefore I mustn't take them seriously. However, what I will say is that I have met young people in this country who are creating change within their communities. So young people are opting out of the formal political system and they're organizing in their own communities. And I'll make an example. I lost my train of thought earlier. I wanted to speak about the young people I met when I was in Venda. When we did the Democracy Builder there, their biggest issue was around crime and safety in their community. So in the workshop, they designed an app under a mango tree in Limpopo. Young people designed an app because, so the issue in that community was mainly that the streets aren't labeled. And so when they call the police either don't come or the police can't find them. So they created an app where you go onto the app, it's very low on data, you press a button and the police are able to find you, right? And that to me is an example of what it means to organize and solve your own issues, right? And this is not to say that we must act on things, because certain things are mandated and it's the government's duty to do certain things. However, the biggest call to South Africans is that we should not always wait on the government to do things for us. And if the current government is then not doing things for us, we must find the people that are willing to do that for us, and we must find those people and put them into office. I attended a talk last year that was hosted by the Rivonia Circle, and it was called Mobilizing People's Power to Act. And the lady from America who was there had said that we must treat elections as a hiring and firing process. Politicians and people who are in parliament, be it the ward councillor, be it the premier, be it the president, those people work for you. The same way they come and beg for your votes is the same way they must act. And if they don't act, we must have the ability and we must create systems that you can step down. So also this thing of parties coming with their manifestos. Think about it as applying for a job. When I was applying for my job, I didn't go there and say, this is who I am, this is what I'm gonna do for you. They already had things outlined that they needed me to do. And that is the same way that we must treat our politicians. We must tell them what to do because they work for us. And the problem with these people is that they're gonna come here and vote and beg for our votes, and then they disappear for 5 years. And in 5 years, they're gonna come back again. And so if it means that we need to talk about ways that we can hold our leaders accountable, then that's exactly what we must do. Because I don't think we're having those kind of conversations enough. We can complain about the political system, but who's gonna solve the political systems if we aren't gonna talk about ways to solve the political system? When I was talking about political systems that don't work for us, I was specifically referring to the Electoral Amendment Bill. The Electoral Amendment Bill is going to change the way that we vote in South Africa, and it's a bill that's in passing right now, right? And that is something that we as young people should contest, and we should contest with our chest. Because if that thing passes, it is again going to concentrate power in political parties and not the people. Again, in South Africa, we have a closed list system where they come and they tell you, these are our candidates. Who chose the candidates?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have 30 seconds left, I'm so sorry. You're short on time.
It's fine.
Thank you very much. Locksmith, you wait.
Thanks. I think I want to start on the last point. Look, there's a report from the Zondo Commission that speaks about the direct election of a president by the people. It also claims that this will create more accountability and so on. But in fact, there's no concrete evidence that is coming with that. South Africa is running a constitutional democracy. The courts are the highest decision-making body, but it is the backbone of our democracy is a parliamentary, multi-party parliamentary system. Now, we're not here to convince anyone who to vote for. We're convincing you on the importance of actually casting a vote. So whether you are happy or unhappy about a particular party, you then you make those feelings felt on a ballot paper. You go to the ballot, you say, I'm unhappy with these ones, therefore I'm going to vote for an alternative. I think that's the first point, is that we're saying the participation of young people in the voting process, regardless of which party that you are going to vote for, is of paramount importance. It's the backbone of any democratic society, that people must choose the people who must represent them in the public. That's the first one. The second one is that when we talk about apathy and despondency, we don't talk about the act of actually voting alone, but we are talking about your participation as young people in society in the various platforms that are created by this constitutional democracy. I know young people who will tell you that, no, we are active, we want to vote, this and that. It does not end there. There are IDPs that we must attend. There are parliamentary participation processes that from time to time the parliament will come and it will consult with people openly in society. Those things are advertised. You'll never see young people there. You'll always see old people sitting there. When we were renaming, for instance, a simple process of the renaming of buildings, not a single young person was there. It's only those of us who are active in political parties. We knew each other, all of us there, that this one is from the DA, this one is from the ANC, this one is from the EFF. But there was no apathetic or apolitical person saying, this is my view on the renaming of the airport of Nelson Mandela Bay. It then became a decision of us as party representatives who were taking part in that democratic process. I'm saying if young people had mobilized each other and went there, they could have overruled even the decision that we as parties were canvassing. I think that's another important point, is that there must be an active participation in the democracy itself, also through apparatuses that are there. The issue of online voting and accommodative voting systems, really, it's really an unfortunate issue of trust and mistrust and inability to advance technologically. I know that a lot of countries in the world, not only in South Africa, do not trust an online voting system because of how easily it can be rigged from a remote place. You can sit here, if you are good in IT, you can hack systems, you can give a party 1 million votes without moving from a chair. So those are some of the limitations or some of the things that are feared when it comes to online voting. However, I do want to touch on the issue of taking voting stations to the people and the people having to go to voting stations in 1994. The people who were voting in 1994 came out of a seriously oppressive regime. And the material conditions in which they were living in could not have allowed for any of them to say, today I have got a headache, I am not going to go and vote. Regardless of how sick they were, regardless of how difficult it would have been to get to a voting station, all of them went to voting stations because they wanted social change. Now, the more our democracy advances, because also it's not true that the government has not done anything. So the more our democracy is advancing, the more young people are being taken through an education system, they are working, they now don't have the problems that they would have had in 1994, and therefore become despondent and say, no, but I've got everything that I want because I get paid at work, why should I vote? The same people who are beneficiaries of a voting process and system that would have introduced some form of political change in the country that would have opened opportunities for them are now saying that now that we have achieved a particular social status, we don't see the need to go back. And that is why consistently it remains the people who live in rural areas, in despondent areas that are voting more than those who are in affluent urban areas. And it's because those people know that their conditions will only change if they participate in a democratic process. But lastly, as I land, I want to agree with the first speaker around the issue of creating a social state or a social welfare state. It's a debate that is going on even in the ruling party now, or the governing party, that really it would have been necessary in 1994 to build houses for people. But 30 years into democracy, an 18-year-old can't really be applying for RDP house. We have given you free schools, we have given you tertiary education, you have got access to all of, but you are 18 in 2024, you want a RDP house. So it's an ongoing cycle of people who think because these alleviating mechanisms are there, that let's take advantage of what is being offered by government. And I think that at some point it must come to a stop, and at some point we must be able to equip our people through knowledge development systems by empowering them infrastructurally and allowing them to participate in the mainstream economy of the country, that they empower themselves and no longer go. You must look at the queues for 350. Those queues were COVID, is a COVID intervention. It's still queued even now. So I'm saying there are systems that we must blame the government for holding on to for too long, but to question why they were there in the first place would really be an injustice, because they were there to resolve injustices of the past and also to try and find some form of equilibrium in the social arrangement of society in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my dear. Can you please give our panelists a round of applause, please? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know that there's a lot of appetite for discussion, but unfortunately time is against us. So with, can you hear me? Yeah. So unfortunately, we can't open another round of discussions, and unfortunately, we're going to have to bring it to a close. So, yes, unfortunately. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to end off with a quote which says, "Gloom and despondency have never defeated adversity. Trying times need courage and resilience. Our strength as a people is not tested during the best of times. As we said before, we should never become despondent because the weather is bad, nor should we turn triumphalist because the sun shines." And that comes from the former president, Thabo Mbeki. Now, without wasting any time, I would just like to call upon our partner, who comes from the Conrad Adenauer Stiftung, Ms. Nancy Msibi, who wants to share some information with us regarding the work that they do. I'm going to call upon her. She's going to come and give us a presentation, and then she's going to close the session off for us. Thank you very much. Please give her a round of applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it's indeed true that time flies when you're having fun. I feel that this was very short. You know, we could have spent another 2 hours or so. And I must say, when Siviwe started, he was really in a almost like fighting mode. But I like the way he ended. You know, it was like now he was a bit more relaxed. I like especially what he said, that participation of young people is the backbone of a democracy. I didn't think I'll agree with you, but you know, when you mentioned the issue of the young people applying for RDP houses, I'm also like, no, I agree with you there. No, you are right. They have so many opportunities. Now they must just go and make a living one way or another. But really, it's such a great pleasure to be among young people. And I like the boldness shown. And I understand your frustration about not wanting to vote. But like we always say, if you don't vote, you don't have the right to complain. And so many of the things that I wanted to say were already said by the previous speakers. So please excuse me if there's a lot of repetition, but I'll continue just reading the short notes that I have to avoid, saying things, out of 10. It is a great pleasure for me to be here. I was last here, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, in Nelson Mandela Bay, the whole COVID lockdown issue, so we couldn't really get together. I'm a project manager at the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. The Konrad Adenauer Foundation is a German political foundation. We fund projects on the promotion of democracy, strengthening good governance, and the rule of law. We fund organizations like Konrad, like Youth Lab, that we represent, and many other think tanks and universities, as well as political parties. We don't fund the ANC. So, yes, I must just put it out there. So in Germany, they have political foundations that work with different political parties. So the ANC here works with the Friedrich Ebert Foundation. So we fund mainly parties like, the New Kid on the Block, Action SA. We used to fund ACDP in the past, but we stopped because they promote death penalty and CAS doesn't support death penalty. We also fund, we have IFP as a long-standing political party. Then we also fund BOSA. Yes, I know it's like, but yes, we do. It's a long-standing political party of the foundation that the foundation supports. We are not ashamed of that. But then we also have a prestigious scholarship for master's students in humanities. I'm saying it's prestigious because it's fully paid tuition and a very good stipend that the scholars get. And also being a scholar of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, it opens you to so many opportunities. You become part of a network of the foundation worldwide, and also the scholarship is also tied to an internship at the South African Institute of International Affairs. I must say, all the scholarship holders, this scholarship started in 1999, all of them always knew by the time they graduated that they'll be going to be employed wherever. Because working at SAI gives them an opportunity to network while they're still studying. So please, if you're doing honors or if you know someone who's doing honors, please tell them about the scholarship. So this dialogue and the vibrant discussions we had, and also taking into consideration the coalition talks of last week, really shows that election season is upon us. And then my question to you as a young person is, what are you going to do about it? I know some of you high school learners, you're still young, but you can already start preparing yourself for when the time comes for you to register and vote. Because like we said, if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain. Nelson Mandela once said, "It is in your hands." I echo the same sentiment, but I also would like to add, the future of South Africa is in your hands as young people. It is up to you what you do with it. It really does not matter which political party you vote for, but please register, and not only register, but also go and vote. Young people spend such a lot of time on social media, TikTok and whatever else, Instagram, whatever. Can you just go and stand in the queue? It will probably cost you like 2 hours of your life just to stand in the queue and vote, and just put the phone aside for one day. To the high school learners, politics aside, to the high school learners, the sky is the limit. The world is full of so many opportunities. It's really up to you what you do with it. Don't look at your background. Don't doubt yourself. Visualize the life you want for yourself. Focus, work hard, and strive to reach your goals. You have no one to blame. Like I told you that we have a scholarship, there are so many bursaries available. While you are busy wasting your time on TikTok, you can actually research and just find out what other opportunities are there out there for yourselves. You really have no excuse. I would like to thank Professor Mgomezulu and his team at Conrad for the hard work they did to make this event a success. The facilitator, you did a great job. Our panelists, thank you very much. And also for all of you for your active participation. We really appreciate this, and I can't wait to be with you next time. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give another round of applause, please, for Ms. Nancy. So we've come to the end of our discussion, and I mean, the discussion doesn't end. We're going to have a discussion outside again because we're going to be networking and nibbling on refreshments. But before we go there, I would just like to make an announcement. So on the 29th of August, which is next week, CANRAD will be having another discussion, and this discussion will be on AI social bots, algorithms, and the 2024 general elections. So I think that there were a lot of questions that were posed regarding the internet, cyberspace, and so on and so forth, in terms of influencing elections, and that's a discussion that we're going to be having next week. And then on the 31st of August again, oh yes, and all questions that were posed to the IEC is going to be there next week, so please be present. And then on the 31st of August, which is next week, Friday, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Thursday. We're going to be having a book launch on the PhD experience of African students in African universities. So you're also invited to that. Don't forget to RSVP. My name is Ndotana at mandela.ac.za. I'm the point person for that event. Besides that, thank you so much for attending our event, and please make sure that you enjoy the refreshments. Thank you. Oh, and another thing, sorry, can I just ask that
Can you please ask all of the school children